Welcome back, everyone, to another OKestWeekly recap where we cover all things handheld PC gaming. All news or no news, we'll cover every brand. And don't forget, if you enjoy this video, do the OKS thing and boop that like button. And if you're enjoying the channel, subscribe below. Alright, let's jump into it. Let's kick things off with our quick news. So I have the Lenovo Legion handheld to go over today. We've got some images that have surfaced, as well as a redesign for the TJD T101. First up, let's take a look at this Lenovo update. So we've got some information from windowsreporting.com. We've gotten our first look at the actual device. These are official images according to the website. In the article, they go over the screen. They mention that it does have an 8-inch screen, so this confirms what we had heard last week. And also that it's going to be using the new 7000 series APU. So they don't specify which one, but I'm sure we can assume at this point that it's going to be the 7840. But the most important thing is these new images, so let's take a closer look at them. We have 4 images to take a look at to learn a little bit about the device. If we take a look at the front-facing photo, we can see the button interface, so it looks like a back button, start, the ABXY, 2 joysticks that are in the Xbox style, and then we've got a little trackpad on the right side on the bottom, and on the left there's 2 other buttons. I'm going to guess one is a pull-out menu, and this one's probably show desktop. Taking a look from an angle, we can see that there's a connector for a strap. That's what I'm guessing this is. And then there's an M1 and M2 button on the sides. I'm hoping that these can be turned off when you're not using them as Joy-Cons so that you don't accidentally press them, but we'll have to see what we learn about this. And then at the bottom, it looks like there's a USB-C port. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what it looks like from here. If we head over to the back, you can see that there's an M3 and an M4 button on the sides. So these are, it looks like they're located different depending on the side. I'm not sure exactly why, but this one seems to be more of a horizontal. So, you have one here and then one a little bit on the inside, and these ones are vertical. So I'm not sure the reason for that, or if that's just maybe a couple experiments they're working on, but we'll have to wait to see. And then there's a kickstand. It looks like the Switch OLED, which is nice because it's going to be nice and stable, I'm assuming. And you can get a little bit more of a look at the buttons at the top. So it looks like these would be probably the volume buttons. This would be power, headphone jack. I'm going to guess this is just the vents. And then it looks like that's a micro SD slot and then another USB-C. And finally, we can take a look at what it actually does here. So it looks like it removes. These look very similar to the Switch. So they just remove and you can use it as a tablet. So it really does look like they're strongly going for the Switch vibe here. But we're going to have to wait to hear more to see what exactly the functionality is going to be, whether you can play 2-player. Like on the OneXPlayer 2, you could remove the controllers, but they didn't work unless they were connected to the console or they're connected to the controller connector. This picture would suggest that they probably have batteries because it looks like it's still lit up while disconnected, but of course this is a render, so I'm not sure that we can really rely on that information. Well, this is awkward. As soon as I finished recording that section, there was another article that came out. Some of it is confirming some of the stuff that I had just talked about, and then there's a few things that I wasn't actually aware of that I'll go over quickly. So let's take a look at that article. So this is also coming from windowsreport.com, and it appears that Lenovo is going to be releasing some AR glasses. We don't know exactly when, but it probably would coincide with the Legion Go. There isn't a ton of information, but we could take a look at this image and gather a few things. They look very similar to the X-Real Air in my opinion. And I'm going to guess that they connect just through USB-C because you can see there's a cord running over here plugging into the device. Obviously I'm speculating, but that is what I would gather from that. There isn't really any more information aside from this image, so I'll keep you guys up to speed on the AR glasses as we learn more about that. But most of you are probably here for the update for the Lenovo Go, so let's take a look here. We've got a few new images that have surfaced, not a lot of new information. You can see a little bit about the joystick. It doesn't really have tons of information, but you can kind of see that it's probably going to use the same module as the ROG Ally. I'm just guessing that from the cap here. And if we look down here, we can see what I was guessing for the different ports. I was mostly correct. So we have the micro SD card, the volume rockers here, USB-C, power button, headphone jack, and we've got the thermal vents here. There is 2 mics at the bottom, and apparently there's a toggle switch for FPS mode. I'm gonna guess maybe that's a trigger stop. And then there's also a mouse sensor, which I did not expect. And then there's the USB-C on the bottom, so we were correct in that guess. Continuing on, we can see the controllers. So I guess we have a name for the buttons. I was calling it the back button, but it's the Legion L, and the start button is called the Legion R. It seems that this is a view button, menu button, so probably close functionality to what I was guessing, but they could be a little bit different. Continuing on, we have the back side here, so we can see that there's the M1, M2 buttons, M3 and M4, and it does seem that they are doing the horizontal and vertical. Over here, they've called it the Y1 and Y2, so that's a little different than I was expecting. We can see the release buttons, so this would be how you'd remove the controllers from the back. And the other surprise is actually a little mouse wheel that's on the right side here. So that I didn't see that in the images, but that's kind of cool. Carrying on, there's not much information aside from the processor. So we thought that it was going to be a 7840, but it turns out it's going to be one of the Z1 chips. It doesn't specify in this article which one, but I would assume it would be the Z1 Extreme, and maybe they're going to do a Z1 regular series, kind of similar to what they're doing with the ROG Ally. But of course, that remains to be seen. We're going to have to wait to find out. As far as performance, there's not really much information. Like, they have a breakdown here, but it doesn't have anything that we don't already know from those images. But if you're visual and want to see a chart, come check out the site and you can see roughly what we know and what we don't know. They also cover battery and cooling, but there hasn't really been any information released on that, so we don't have anything aside from this image, which really just tells us that there's a fan. And going down to availability and price, we don't know anything, but this particular website is predicting sometime in 2023, and they're thinking that the price may be similar to the ROG Ally. But of course, we're going to have to wait for official news to learn more about that. Well, our quick news section definitely wasn't quick, but we've got lots of news, and I'm glad this update came just in time for me to include it in this weekly. And moving on to the update for the TJD T101, we do have a redesign for the color scheme. They've decided to simplify it just down to two colors, black and white, and you can see that they're a lot more subtle. If you remember the previous designs, they were much more colorful, but a little bit more extreme. So the black model had numerous colors. It had red, green, yellow, pink, purple, orange. And a lot of the criticism that people had given the company was that it looked like a Fisher-Price toy, and they took that criticism seriously and made the changes. And here's a closer look at the black model. So what do you think? Is this a good change, or is this something that they should have left alone and kept the original colors? Let's talk about that in the comments. And that's all I've got for the quick news, so let's move on over to the ROG Ally. This week for the ROG Ally, I don't have any official news from ASUS, but we do have some community updates. We have some updates to the battery mod, we have some Hall effect joysticks from Handheld DIY, and also an L-shaped M.2 adapter so you can fit a 2280 size SSD into your ROG Ally without any cutting. Whether it's a good idea or not still remains to be seen. We have one other update as well for a modification to add 900p to your ROG Ally display. I'll link the original source of this mod, and I'll also link a couple videos that show you how to set this up. First, let's take a look at the battery mod update. So for those that aren't familiar, some users had put in a 90 watt-hour battery and had looked at expanding the case so that they could actually fit it. Taking a look at the ROG Ally Discord server, we can see some of the case designs that people have been working on. So this one looks pretty cool. Let's take a closer look. And as you can see, it looks super clean. It's got some nice design on the back, and it's really crisp how the text pops out. It almost looks like it's official, but if you look closely, you can see there's a few blemishes from the print. But from a distance, you really wouldn't know that this wasn't an official shell. Probably the coolest part is, I'll show you another picture here. So when they set it down on the table, it seems to be able to prop itself up with the angle that they've done here. So that's super cool. You don't really need a kickstand. You could just place it down, have a boosted up battery, and be able to just play like this. Super cool to see how much progress they've made. So let's take a look at some other designs. If we scroll down a little bit, you can see it's probably a similar mold, but they have it where it's split down the middle. So this would make it where somebody with a smaller printer could actually print this as well. And I believe they're still prototyping. You can see it's still a little bit rough around the edges. The outside looks pretty nice, but when you take a look at the inside, it just needs to be cleaned up a little bit, or possibly maybe some tweaks made to the file, but it looks pretty good, considering it's been made with a 3D printer. You can see some of the other processes. So they have a battery here that's normally like this. Now it is a little bit, they don't recommend it for everyone to do this. There is some risk because you have to actually fold the battery over. As you can see, it's been folded here, and as long as you're careful, then you should be fine. And then you could rewrap it. And then they place it onto here. They have a little shell that comes around that I guess protects the battery. And then they can secure their custom shell that sticks out a little bit further so that it can actually fit that extra width of the battery, or sorry, the thickness. So as you can see, the mod is coming along pretty nicely. I would love to be able to do this mod, but I'm trying to keep my warranty because I've had probably the worst luck when it comes to these SD card readers because my second one is gone now as well. And I'm planning to pick up my third Ally actually around the time this video goes live. I'll most likely end up making a video tutorial for this. One of the community members was looking for someone that could edit it and add in the steps, basically make it into a video tutorial. So I will take their footage when they provide it and go ahead and complete a video for you guys for those that are looking to do this themselves. On to the next bit of Ally news. So there's a website that is selling Hall Effect joysticks that's been making its rounds on the community, on the Facebook, as well as the Discord and the Reddit. And this website is Handheld DIY. Let's take a look at the website here. So if we click on the Hall Effect joystick here, we see that we get the product that has basically 2 sticks, and it has a kit that has a guitar pick, some shielding paper, pry tool, tweezers, and a screwdriver. Previously it said that this was a sure fix for drift, but they've since changed it. I'm guessing since some people have had a little bit of difficulty. I did get this sent to me and 2 other community members, and we're going to test it together to see if it makes any difference compared to the results of what I had tried previously. So for those curious about that, I will be testing it, and I'll update everyone in a community post or possibly make a short video or maybe include it in the weekly. I haven't really decided yet. But regardless, I'll let you guys know how this is. Even if it's not a perfect fix, it is a little bit cheaper, so this will work on the GPD Win 4 and possibly a few other handhelds. I believe the AOKZOE, the OneXPlayer, this should work on all of them. Next up, we have a mod for the SSD that is an L-shaped M.2 adapter. So what this does is it makes it so that you can plug it in and then have the 2280 size run sideways. Taking a look at this other picture, you can see that the 2280 is going to run right above the APU and right beside the heat pipe. So I can't confirm whether this is going to have an impact, but I would suspect that it's probably going to. With this mod, I suspect we're going to run into some temperature issues for the SSD because the SSD on its own already runs fairly warm, never mind putting it on top of the APU and right beside the heat pipe. But I know some people are going to be testing it out, so let's see how it goes. I'm not sure. I probably won't be trying this myself, but I'm sure other people are going to test it out, and I can let you guys know what they find. And my last update for the ROG Ally is actually a mod that's been making its rounds around the communities, and that's for 900p. So from what I can gather, this mod came from actually the GPD server from a user called cyfree.bat. And it involves making some changes to the registry. I'm not going to go super in depth because there are a couple of videos that you can watch. I didn't get a chance to really try this out or to make any kind of tutorial for it, but there are a couple of videos if you're interested. There's one from Windeck Tech and another one from Filterless. So check those out if you're interested and let me know how this mod works. And that's going to wrap it up for my ROG Ally updates. So let's move on to the Steam Deck. For Steam Deck this week, I have a couple things to go over. The first one is that screen mod that we talked about a few months ago, the one where you could add a 1200p screen to your Steam Deck. Well, we got our first look at it in a video from Taki Udon where we're able to see it compared with the stock screen. He shows a little bit of the install process, although he did have his screen out prior, so he did cut through some steps because he was just wanting to focus on the screen itself for the video. So I'll drop a link in the description and definitely check it out if you are interested in that. I'm considering picking up one of those and maybe doing a tutorial on how to upgrade your screen. If that's something you guys would be interested in, just let me know in the comments. And next up, we have some beta client updates, so let's take a look at those. Our first update comes on the 14th, and it's pretty simple. There's just a few bug fixes. For general, there's some empty folders that weren't being recreated when you were verifying a game installation, and there was a bug that made you install an OS update a second time if you switched over to desktop mode. In the desktop mode, there was a few bug fixes. One to fix the adding a non-Steam game where it wasn't automatically being added to the library, a fix to allow the settings window to be resized, and being able to switch over to windowed mode from full screen if you've already dismissed a full screen video, another fix for some notifications that were stealing focus when they were displayed in the overlay, as well as fixing a freezing issue in the overlay, and finally a reliability fix for the back button. We had another update on the 17th, and it looks like they still had another fix to issue for the non-Steam games disappearing from the library. They fixed a bug where screenshots that were marked as spoiler were not being obscured, and then in desktop mode they fixed another issue with some window sizes, and then a fix for the on-screen keyboard apparently breaking controller inputs in certain games. And on the 19th we had another update. There was some issues with the desktop mode with the browser tabs, so they fixed a couple bugs there. And then for Steam input, they reduced the lag between switching pages in the edit layout mode. So that's it for the updates, and that's also going to do it for the Steam Deck section, so let's move on to AOKZOE. For AOKZOE this week, I don't really have any updates to go over. The only thing that I do have is that the A2 is apparently going to be coming potentially in September. So that's the latest update that I have. And that's coming from the rep in the Discord server, but they weren't 100% sure. They were still waiting for an update. So I don't exactly have a for sure answer for when shipped, but hopefully that's going to be happening in September. I'll keep watching this, and of course I'll keep you guys up to speed. And that's all I've got for AOKZOE, so let's move on over to OneXPlayer. For OneXPlayer this week, there isn't much to cover. The campaign for the Onexfly is still live, so check it out if you're interested and if you haven't checked it out yet. There was also another review that went live from Fan the Deck, so check that one out if you're curious about this device. And the last thing to note is that I did get the shipping notification for my Onexfly, so it should be here sometime next week, probably Thursday, Friday. So once I get that, I'll start doing some testing and I'll do a first impressions review and probably begin filming a ROG Ally versus the Onexfly, so I'm really curious to see the results of that. That's probably what I'm most excited about. So keep an eye on the channel, my community updates, the Discord server, and also look out for those videos because they'll be coming soon. As usual, I'll leave links in the video description. I'll leave a link for the Indiegogo campaign for the Onexfly, as well as a link to the review from Fan the Deck. And that's pretty much all I've got for OneXPlayer, so let's move on to AYN. For AYN, I have a couple updates. I have some updates for the Odin 2 campaign, as well as some updates for shipping of the Loki Mini and the Loki Zero. First, let's take a look at the Odin 2 updates. The Indiegogo page is now up, so this isn't where you can pre-order, but you can sign up for email updates, or you can also sign up to get a $40 discount code. So if you're looking to get one of these, you may as well. I mean, who doesn't want $40 off? So come check it out. I'll drop this link in the video description. We did get some more updates though on this page. So if you go to here, we can see that we've got a list of the different models. So we have a base model with 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage, a Pro model with 12 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage, and a Max with 16 gigs of RAM and 512 storage. The prices range from $299 up to $449, and for the color options for the base model, it's only in black. The Pro and Max come in both colors, and you also get a bag and screen protector with the Max model. We've also got a spec sheet here, so you can get a full list of the specs for the device. So you can see that it's going to have a 6-inch 1080p display, and it has an HDMI and DisplayPort, Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 5.3, and the USB-C is going to be USB 3.1. It has a micro HDMI and a 3.5mm headphone jack. It'll come with Android 13, and it has an 8000 mAh battery. It'll have an active cooling system, so that means it'll have a fan, and it comes with a 65 watt-hour quick charge 5.0, so I'm guessing that's just whatever they're branding it. It'll weigh 420 grams and comes in at 225 millimeters by 98 by 17. We can also see some images that just basically show exactly the specs that we were just talking about, so you could take a look at here. The one thing that I see here that I didn't see on the spec sheet is a fingerprint model, so I'm wondering if it has fingerprint sign-in. And over here we can see the interface laid out, so you can see the different buttons, what it all has. You can see the I/O. You can see that it has a micro SD card reader, as well as 2 buttons at the back. And then looking at the campaign here, so you can see their full development journey. So they started in 2022, and they've worked their way, and of course we're in 2023 now. So now they're at a little bit past the molding phase. So I guess they're doing their mass production starting in November, and their hope is to ship out in December of this year. So let's hope that they're able to ship in December. Some of their other products have been delayed, so hopefully this one is the exception, but we'll have to see. The only other update that I have for AYN is that the Loki Zero has not shipped yet, and the Loki Mini is going to be coming sometime after the Loki Zero, so we'll have to stay tuned to see what comes of that. So I'm seriously considering getting the Odin 2, but what do you guys think? Should I expand into Android handhelds, or should I stay in my lane with the handheld PCs? Well, that's all I've got for AYN, so let's move on to AYANEO. For AYANEO this week, I don't really have any updates. The only update is that the Air 1S campaign is still live, and you can still get the early bird prices if you're looking for one of those. We are expecting another live stream for the AYANEO Kun coming up soon. I wouldn't be surprised if it surprise drops tomorrow when my video comes out. Seems to happen almost every time. But once it does, I'll give you the summary of what will likely be a few hour presentation. So that's it for AYANEO, so let's move on to GPD. For GPD this week, we have some big news that we finally got some information for the GPD Win Mini and its price, so let's take a look at that. So here you can see that we have a couple different models. We have the 7640U and the 7840U. The 7640U is going to start at $699 USD for the crowdfunding price, and will come with 16 gigabytes of RAM and 5 12 gigabytes of storage. And for the 7840U, you have two options. Both have 32 gigabytes of RAM, but you can either get it with 5 12 gigabytes of storage or 2 terabytes. The 512 is coming in at $869 USD, and the 2 terabyte is going for $999. And you can also buy an ergonomic grip to add on for $29. It's still not exactly determined when exactly this campaign is going to be going live. The only information that I've seen so far is that it's coming after the G1, which still has 11 days remaining, so maybe it's coming in a couple weeks, but of course I'm just speculating if they're going by after the G1, maybe that's right after, maybe it's a month after, I really don't know. And as usual, I'll be watching this and I'll give you any updates that I come across as soon as I get them. And some other cool news that I wanted to share with you guys is I'm actually going to be getting the WinMax 2 7840. Geek Buying is planning to send me one, so I'll do a review of that and I'll share their links. I can share some pre-order links in the video description. The current prices that Geek Buying is offering with the coupon is the same as the Indiegogo, so keep that in mind. But usually it goes down later on, so it really depends if you want it sooner or you want it later. So with having the ROG Ally and getting the Onexfly on its way, the GPD Win 4 and the GPD Win Max 2 7840U, it looks like we have the ingredients for an ROG Ally versus 7840U Battle Royale, so let's see what happens. And that's all I've got for GPD this week, and that's also the end of this week's weekly, so I hope you enjoyed this video and thank you for watching.